Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's second video. We did Jam A Friday earlier on today. You can find that here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a bit. It's underneath the link ads. That's taking us out into the middle of January. At the end of the video, though, I can show you very quickly this morning's GFS run. That the midnight run of the GFS did turn quite cold just around the new year. Pull winds into the north. And I said that we'd probably have a look at the GFS ensembles this evening to see how much support there is for colder weather in the new year. So we're going to have a very quick scoot through the GFS ensemble members, see what they're all showing for the early part of January, which takes through the first week of January. So go with that view in a second. Before we get on with that, just very quick to say about the assets, links, articles, all pages, have a browse through widgets, click through links if there's any articles that you're interested in, how we used to pay for our website. Thanks very much for doing that. So this is how the midnight run of the GFS today progressed. This started on New Year's Eve when we're still quite mild there. High pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. And there's probably a weather front through the central sway of the country bringing rain. But on New Year's Day, what the midnight run did was take high pressure out into the Atlantic and moving up towards Greenland, push a cold front down across the country and probably introduce colder air, or definitely introduce colder air from the north. And then that set up quite a cold spell, actually. So this is Monday the 2nd of January, when we got high pressure around Iceland and Greenland, quite a block, and a proper northerly wind coming down with cold temperatures, and no doubt would be some snow showers in with that as well. And then that carried on into the first week of January. This is Tuesday the 3rd, where it had high pressure out to the north and west and low pressure over UK with the wind in from the north or the northeast. And yes, that would be cold and wintry. But I didn't know how much support it had for that solution. It's quite a change on what the GFS has been showing recently for the New Year period. So I thought we'd have a look at the GFS ensembles this evening. I'll tell you about the latest operational run of the GFS. So that was the midnight operational run. The latest midday operational run is nowhere near as cold as that. What it's doing with this one is it has the high pressure centered around Ireland rather than Iceland, and it's bringing in the winds from the west or the northwest. So that's a much milder solution with any cold air really restricted to Scandinavia. But, expect more to be chopping and changing at this juncture for early January. Still quite a way off. So let's see what the GFS ensemble members are showing. We're going to start off with the control run, which is run at a slightly lower resolution compared to the operational run, but it's generally above the resolution of the other ensemble members, if you like. So this is on New Year's Eve, and we're in a westerly, northwesterly flow. Could be fitting in wintry showers to northern parts of the country with that one. Then we go through the early parts of January, so this is the first few days of January, and the idea really is still to keep high pressure very close to the country, only eventually it is broken down by the 8th, with low pressure starting to come in from the west, but nothing particularly cold showing up on that one at all on the control. Let's have a look at the ensemble member number 1 then, and we've got 20 of these to get through, so it's starting on ensemble number 1. We start off on New Year's Eve with high pressure generally around the country, and that's how we stay up into the 5th of January, by which time that high pressure is beginning to decline, and it's turning increasingly stormy there up to the 8th of January. Very wet and windy conditions coming in there, with severe gales potentially in the south. Ensemble member number 2 has low pressure on New Year's Eve, moving in across the country. As that clears away, does turn cold. This one is a cold one. It sends the low pressure off into off to the east, but in Central Europe. It builds pressure from Iceland over towards Scandinavia, and turns the winds into the east and the northeast. So that's a cold one. That low pressure eventually clears away and leaves us in quite an easterly wind there on the 4th into the 5th of January, and then we run up towards the 6th, 7th, 8th, and it's staying cold. High pressure dominating, not much snow, but would be cold with that. Winds generally from the east, and that is a wintry first week to 2017 ensemble member number 2. This is number 3, looks fairly mild on New Year's Eve. It turns stormy then through the first days of New Year's Day, and eventually that low pressure does slip away by the 5th and the 6th. It's going to the south, and the winds are pulling into the east. So this is another cold, but it takes a bit longer to get there, perhaps an ensemble member 2, but it is a cold one, this. Winds are generally from the east, and there would be snow in there, particularly from that area of low pressure out to the west of the country, trying to bring up milder air, meeting the cold air. That one would be producing snow. Ensemble member number 4 finds a cold front moving southwards on New Year's Eve. This is going to set up a cold spell. Yes, it is. Low pressure dies down across the country early in the new year. This is 4th of January. That low pressure slipping down over France, pulling the winds into the north. And then it stays quite cold there through up to the 8th under an area of high pressure. So that's another one that goes cold early in January. This is ensemble member number 5. This one looks mild for New Year's Eve, and eventually it does turn stormy through the early days of January. This is the 4th, 5th, 6th, and this is very westerly, so this one isn't particularly cold. This is just Atlantic-driven, mild and stormy. Ensemble member number 5. Number 6, ensemble number 6 has high pressure out in the Atlantic on New Year's Eve with low pressure. Low pressure out in the Atlantic, high pressure trying to build around Iceland. It looks like it wants to go cold, but actually it just keeps high pressure close to the country through the first week of January. So that one is a bit in between, really, neither particularly cold or particularly mild. Number 7 has a weather system coming down across the country on the early part of the new year. That does pull in a northerly wind on the 3rd of January, which will be quite cold, but not sustained. And actually this one, again, is quite Atlantic-driven, so that's a fairly mild one, just with a very brief cold snap for one day around the 3rd of January. This is number 8, and quite a anticyclonic one. This one, high pressure is dominating, and eventually, it takes a while to get there, but up towards the 5th and 6th, we are taking that high pressure up towards Greenland, Iceland, pulling in a cold east or northeasterly wind. So this is a colder one. Ensemble member number 8 doesn't really do anything exciting, but it certainly looks colder there with the winds in from the east or the northeast at times. Number 9 brings a westerly through across the country, and then it just turns very unsettled and quite stormy through the first week of January. Could be a little bit on the cooler side at times. Winds are pushing in from the north or the northwest, so I think northern parts quite cold and unsettled. The south probably not overly so. That's a very unsettled and stormy looking one. This is number 10. We're halfway through. We're bringing a cold front down across the country for ensemble number 10 on New Year's Eve. Then after that, we do bring in some colder air from the east. Actually, it's quite a subtle easterly, but there is a cold easterly there, particularly for the south on the 2nd of January. And then after that, it's high pressure, all the way high pressure dominating until right at the very end. It looks like the Atlantic's breaking free. That's quite a cold one. It doesn't look that dramatic, but it is cold. Ensemble member number 10. Ensemble member number 11 has low pressure out to the northwest, and that, again, diving southwards. This is a bit of a recurring theme with this low pressure sometime around New Year's Day or January the 2nd, moving southwards and turning the winds into the north. And that one does turn quite cold there up to the 5th, and then we're back into the west by the 8th. So that's a recurring theme. Around the 1st, 2nd, bring a trough down across the country, turn it cold. Some of the members just want to push that away very quickly, and some of them turn that into quite a cold spell. But it is a recurring theme there for the very start of the new year. This is number 12, and this one's trying to get cold as well. Again, there's some colder air moving into the south on the 3rd. High pressure is up to the northern part of the country by then, and then that high pressure sticks around the country through the first week of January before eventually allowing the Atlantic to break through. So that starts off cold around the new year and then turns milder after 2 or 3 colder days. Number 13 has low pressure up to the north on New Year's Eve, high pressure to the south, and this one just looks unsettled, stormy, not overly cold. There's a little bit of a fleeting northerly there on the 5th, but really that's Atlantic driven and a pretty mild one. Number 14 looks unsettled for New Year's Eve, low pressure coming in across the country. And then that one again, just very Atlantic-driven, very unsettled and quite mild. No cold weather really showing up on that one. Number 15 has, again, a trough coming down across the country on around the new year. And then it turns colder there through into the 5th, 6th of January. The winds are going into the north and the northeast, albeit still with a lot of high pressure around the country. That's a colder one. Ensemble member number 15. Number 16 looks mild for New Year's Eve, and then we pull down that very slight northwesterly, northerly 2nd, 3rd of January. That's not going to last very long. Low pressure coming back in. That's Atlantic driven, stormy and mild, number 16. Number 17 on New Year's Eve looks like it's trying to go cold, actually, and we do pull down this northerly wind there on New Year's Day and into the 2nd, wind eventually going into the northeast. So the first 2 or 3 days of January, starting off with quite a cold blast there. That will be bringing snow and cold north-northeast winds. And then what does it do? It keeps high pressure very close to the country, tries to break the Atlantic through, but really number 17 is another cold one. Number 18 has, again, low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south. And this all looks very Atlantic driven and not overly cold at times, quite stormy. Number 19, this is our second to last one, our penultimate one, and it looks like it wants to get quite cold there around the 1st, 2nd, but it doesn't come off, and actually this is, again, quite a mild Atlantic driven, at times quite stormy one. And then finally, Ensemble member number 20, again, looks like it's turning cold there on New Year's Day. It is trying to pull down some colder air from the north or the northeast, but again, most of that's going off into Scandinavia and Central Europe. We just stay within the ridge, which is quite dominant right way through, so that would be frosty and fairly cool conditions through the first week of January. Bit of a mixed bag, as you would expect. It's a way off, but certainly there are more Ensemble members there that are going cold, certainly for a day or two, around the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of January. That's a bit of a recurring theme. Now, this might just be a cold snap that comes through around the 1st, 2nd or 3rd, and then very quickly the Atlantic steamrolls through. There are a few options there to extend it into quite a prolonged cold spell and keep it cold throughout the first week of January. But it looks like something is amiss within the GFS ensembles. Have to wait and see how this is looking when I do the next update on Boxing Day, because tomorrow I'm going to do the weekend forecast, and that's all because it's Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day won't be doing a video. We've got the historic video looking at 1879 on Christmas Day. So our next sort of look ahead will be on Boxing Day, and it'll be very interesting to see whether these colder options are still on the table with the GFS ensembles on Boxing Day. So that will be our next look ahead. Right, that's all for now. Don't forget weekend forecast tomorrow, covering the whole of the Christmas week, going into the start of a new year as well. And then, of course, as I say, on Christmas Day is the historic trilogy of videos looking at the whole year of 1879. That's all for now then. Thanks for watching.